In a distant corner of a forgotten kingdom, where the grass grew tall and the wind carried stories older than memory, there once lived a knight whose name had all but vanished from the pages of history. His tale was not one of grand battles or shining glory. There were no banners raised in his honor, no statues carved from stone, no songs sung in courtly halls. His name was Sir Rowan, a quiet figure from a quieter time, and though the world no longer remembered him, the trees did. The wind did. And so did one ancient oak, still standing in the shadowed forest where silence spoke louder than words. Sir Rowan had not been a hero in the way tales often like to remember. He did not lead armies across golden fields, nor did he claim titles through force or fire. Instead, he had spent most of his life riding through quiet villages, mending broken gates, delivering lost children home from the woods, and listening patiently to the concerns of old farmers who had no one else to turn to. He had worn his armor not to shine but to shield. His sword was rarely drawn, and his voice was rarely raised. Yet, in that soft-spoken life, there lived a strength that few recognized and fewer recorded. Time moved forward, as it always does, washing away memories like footprints on a rain-wet road. The world forgot Sir Rowan, just as it forgets most who choose peace over pride. His name faded from scrolls and records, and even his grave was left unmarked beneath the roots of a great tree that had stood longer than the castle walls of Elmsworth. But not all was lost. In the heart of the forest, beneath branches that whispered even when the wind stood still, something old remained. It remembered him. It remembered the knight who had once listened, who had once knelt not to kings, but to the earth itself. This was the beginning of his story, or rather, the quiet continuation of a story the world never truly knew. Like the sound of this forgotten legend, let the tale carry you off to sleep. And do not forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into sleepy history. Crescent Moon Sparkles. The kingdom of Elmsworth lay nestled between gentle hills and thick forests, far from the great empires that once rose and fell in storms of ambition. It was a land untouched by the hunger for expansion or the noise of conquest. Its people were quiet, its seasons slow, and its stories softer than the songs carried by the wind. Elmsworth did not appear on many maps, and those who stumbled upon it often wondered if it had always been there, tucked beneath the clouds like a secret too peaceful to share. The cobbled streets of its towns were worn smooth by centuries of careful footsteps. Stone cottages leaned gently into one another like old friends, their rooftops overgrown with moss that glowed emerald in the morning light. Markets bustled without shouting, and children ran through apple orchards, their laughter distant and light, as if even joy knew how to move gently in Elmsworth. Time here did not march. It wandered. At the center of the kingdom stood the modest castle of Eldeglen. Unlike the towering palaces of faraway kings, it did not reach for the sky. Its towers were short, its walls low, and ivy crept along the stones undisturbed. The royal family of Elmsworth was not known for war or wealth, but for their long tradition of listening. They held court not in marble halls, but beneath the open sky, often beneath the very trees that whispered truths older than law. Even the crown was made of woven branches, not gold, a symbol of harmony, not power. But what gave Elmsworth its quiet magic was not its royalty, nor its history. It was the land itself. The meadows moved with the rhythm of old lullabies, and the rivers hummed to themselves as they curved through glades forgotten by time. There were forests where no axe had ever fallen, where the trees grew so tall and ancient that some believed they dreamed. And deep within one such forest, hidden from all maps and beyond the reach of most footsteps, stood the whispering oak, silent to most but not to all. Would you like to keep going deeper into the world of Sir Rowan? Let us continue this soft journey. And do remember to like and subscribe for more tales that help you drift gently into sleep. Evergreen Tree Candle. Sir Rowan did not live in a castle, though he had once been offered a place among the king's guard. He chose instead a cottage at the edge of a wide meadow, where the tall grass swayed like waves in the wind and deer often wandered close to his door without fear. His home was built of stone and timber, its hearth always warm, and its shelves filled with scrolls, tools, and hand-carved wooden figures no one had ever asked for but everyone cherished when received. Each day in Rowan's life followed a rhythm as steady as the beating of a calm heart. He woke early, not because he had to, but because he liked to watch the morning mist lift from the fields. He tended to his horse, a gray mare named Elwyn who had been his companion for many years. He repaired broken fences for neighbors, fetched water from the spring without being asked, and spent long afternoons walking quietly through the forest, listening more than speaking. Children often greeted him along the road, and he always answered their questions with patience, no matter how many times he had been asked the same ones before. Though he had trained as a knight and worn armor in his youth, Sir Rowan rarely spoke of those days. His sword, still sharp and clean, rested beneath his bed, untouched except for careful oiling. It was not that he feared violence, but that he had grown to see its weight. He had come to understand that courage did not always look like a raised blade. Sometimes it looked like staying still when others rushed forward, or listening when others only spoke. In the village of Almora, just a short walk from his cottage, the people did not see him as a warrior. They saw him as something quieter, a guardian of calm, a keeper of stories too gentle to be told at court. They brought him herbs in the spring and cider in the fall, not out of obligation but out of affection. Sir Rowan had become, in time, part of the land's stillness, not loud and shining, but steady and remembered by those who mattered most. Let the hush of Rowan's life calm your evening thoughts. And if his quiet path speaks to you, remember to like and subscribe for more peaceful tales. Herb House with Garden. Long before Sir Rowan was born, long before the castle at Elderglen had even been built, there stood a single oak tree deep within the forest of Haldon. It was taller than any other, with bark as dark as twilight and branches that reached out like the arms of forgotten gods. The people of Elmsworth called it the Whispering Oak, not only for the way its leaves rustled even when the wind did not blow, but for the legend that had surrounded it for generations. No one truly remembered how the legend began, though it was told over low fires and in gentle tones, as if speaking too loudly might wake something ancient. According to the oldest tales, the Whispering Oak could speak, but not with words. It whispered in thoughts, in dreams, in subtle nudges of the heart. It did not speak to everyone. Only a few, always those who did not seek glory, who walked softly and listened often, had ever claimed to hear it. Some said the tree was planted by a druid who never died, whose soul had merged with the roots and now lived on in the quiet rustle of leaves. Others believed the tree marked a place where time folded in on itself, where past and present met in silence. A few even whispered that the oak held the memory of the earth itself, and that it would share a piece of that memory with those it found worthy. The villagers of Almora knew better than to wander too deep into the forest. They did not fear the oak, but they respected it. Children were told that it could hear their footsteps, and that it remembered the sound of every soul who had passed beneath its branches. Offerings of bread or honey were sometimes left at the edge of the woods, not as worship, but as a quiet acknowledgement of something older than kings. Sir Rowan had heard the legend many times, but he had never gone in search of the tree. Not because he did not believe, but because he did. He believed that some things revealed themselves only when one stopped seeking. And the Whispering Oak, like most truths, would only speak when the forest was ready. If you are enjoying this gentle unraveling of a forgotten legend, do not forget to like and subscribe. There are still deeper secrets to uncover. Deciduous Tree Sparkles. It began on an afternoon like many others, quiet, uneventful, and wrapped in the kind of stillness that only Elmsworth could offer. Sir Rowan had just finished repairing the fence of a nearby cottage, his hands smelling faintly of pine sap and old rope. As he walked along the edge of the forest, where the meadow faded into shadow, he paused beneath a birch tree to drink from his flask. It was then that he felt it, a subtle shift in the air, not colder or warmer, just different. As if the world had inhaled and forgotten to exhale. There was no sound, and yet he heard something. Not with his ears, but with something quieter, a feeling, a thought that did not seem to belong to him. It was not a voice, not exactly. Just a wordless invitation that stirred gently behind his eyes. He turned slowly, facing the deeper part of the woods, and saw nothing unusual. But he knew. Something had called. Rowan stood still for a long time. He had heard stories of men chasing legends too eagerly, only to find disappointment or madness at the end of their paths. But he also knew that he had not chased anything. The feeling had come to him, like a memory forgotten until the moment it mattered. With no fanfare, no armor, and no destination, he stepped into the woods, not as a knight, but as a man answering a whisper. The forest was unchanged. The birds still sang their quiet songs, and the underbrush still crackled softly beneath his boots. Yet there was something new in the silence, not tension but depth. The trees did not feel like they were merely standing. They seemed to be watching. Rowan did not rush. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if each step needed time to settle before the next one could follow. He brought no weapon, only a walking stick and a pouch of dried berries. He was not chasing glory. He did not expect treasure, nor fear danger. He was simply following the shape of something that could not be seen, something that had waited for him, perhaps, longer than he had known. Let the hush of this journey guide your night. And if this gentle quest speaks to your soul, do like and subscribe to follow it further. Waxing crescent moon deer. The forest thickened around Sir Rowan as he walked, branches weaving overhead like the arches of an ancient cathedral no hands had ever built. The light grew dim, filtered through layers of mist and leaves, casting soft shadows on the mossy floor. There was no path, no trail worn by others, only the faint sense that each step was leading him closer to something. The mist curled low to the ground, slow and silver, wrapping around his boots and hiding the roots beneath. He walked without urgency. The quiet was complete, broken only by the occasional flap of a distant bird or the soft crackle of twigs beneath his step. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath here. It was a place untouched by the ticking of time. The trees stood tall and motionless, their bark streaked with age, their leaves whispering not in sound but in presence. Some were so wide at the base that a dozen men could not have circled them hand to hand. Their trunks bore the marks of passing centuries, scars from storms, mossy folds, and delicate carvings perhaps made by hands long turned to dust. Rowan paused often, not from weariness, but from reverence. He touched the bark of an elm so old it seemed to hum beneath his fingers. He knelt beside a pool of still water and saw not his reflection, but a tangle of sky and branches, as though the forest had hidden the heavens within its heart. A fox trotted across his path, paused, and looked at him for a long, silent moment before vanishing into the mist without a sound. As the day stretched on and the sky above faded from pale gold to soft gray, Rowan continued deeper. He had no fear. The forest, for all its ancient power, did not feel hostile. It felt watchful, yes, and vast beyond knowing, but also welcoming. Not in the way a fire welcomes with warmth, but in the way a memory welcomes with quiet recognition. Somewhere beyond the mist, the whispering oak waited. And Rowan, with no map and no questions, kept walking, not seeking answers, but simply listening. If the peace of the mist speaks to your heart tonight, stay close, and like and subscribe to follow this quiet path even further. Fog evergreen tree. As twilight softened the forest into shades of blue and gray, Sir Rowan came upon a clearing he did not expect. It was small, quiet, and ringed with crooked stones worn smooth by weather and time. In its center stood a hut made of thatch and timber, leaning slightly to one side, as if the earth had shifted under its feet. Smoke rose gently from a crooked chimney, and the scent of something warm, herbs and slow-cooked roots, lingered in the air like a memory. Rowan approached slowly. He knocked, not with force, but with respect. The door creaked open, and standing there was a man as old as the forest itself, or so it seemed. His beard was white and full, falling nearly to his belt, and his robe looked as though it had been sewn together from moss, bark, and fog. His eyes, however, were sharp and steady, like twin lanterns that had never gone out, even through many winters. "You heard it," the hermit said before Rowan had spoken a word. His voice was dry but not unfriendly. It held the weight of someone who had been waiting a long time for someone else to arrive. Rowan nodded. The old man stepped aside, allowing him in without ceremony. The hut was filled with strange objects, bundles of dried herbs, carved bones, ancient scrolls, and jars filled with things that glowed faintly even in the dim light. But it was not cluttered. Everything had its place, as though it had grown there rather than been placed. Over a quiet meal of root stew and nettle tea, the hermit spoke of the oak. Not in the way of myths or bedtime tales, but in a tone that suggested memory. He spoke of others who had once come this way long ago. Some had heard whispers and left changed. Others had heard nothing at all and wandered back confused. But Rowan, the hermit said, had arrived with silence in his heart. That, more than courage, was what the tree remembered. Rowan said little. He only listened, as he always had. And when night fully fell, the hermit offered him a blanket made of woven reeds and a mat beside the fire. No more was said, for nothing more needed to be. Did this hidden corner of the forest calm your mind? Then do like and subscribe, and we shall journey even deeper together. Night settled over the forest with deliberate calm, draping the trees in layers of shadow and stillness. Beyond the clearing where the hermit's hut stood, the canopy opened just enough to reveal a sliver of the night sky, where pale stars flickered in silence. The air grew colder, but not bitter. It carried with it the scent of moss, wood smoke, and the faint sweetness of wild thyme. Sir Rowan lay on the woven mat near the embers of the fire, his cloak pulled tightly around his shoulders, his eyes drawn toward the open sky above. Sleep came slowly, not because of discomfort, but because the quiet demanded attention. Every creak of the trees, every subtle shift in the wind, seemed to speak in a language only the forest remembered. As his breathing deepened, his thoughts began to drift. Not in confusion, but in gradual surrender to something older than thought itself. In the depth of that sleep, Rowan began to dream. Not in the usual fragmented images of the mind, but in long, flowing impressions that moved like smoke through his awareness. He stood again in the forest, but it was different. The trees were larger, glowing faintly from within, their roots pulsing with a soft, golden light. The sky was a deep violet, and from above, leaves fell like snow, slow and endless. A voice came, but not as sound. It moved like warmth through the chest, a feeling that formed ideas without words. The forest, or something within it, was remembering, showing him echoes of events too distant to measure. A knight walking these woods centuries ago. A child laying flowers at the base of the great oak. A queen who once wept beneath its branches, whispering secrets to the bark. Sir Rowan did not move in the dream. He only watched and somehow understood. The forest had not forgotten. It carried memory like roots carried water, deep, unseen, essential. And in being remembered, Rowan felt himself becoming part of something greater. Not through action, but through presence. When he awoke, the fire had burned low, the hermit was gone, and morning was near. But something had changed, subtly, like the echo of a dream still lingering behind the eyes. If this glimpse into a world beyond waking brought stillness to your thoughts, remember to like and subscribe, and let the stars guide you to the next chapter. The morning came gently, without fanfare. A thin mist lingered in the grass, glowing pale under the early sun. Sir Rowan rose from his resting place and stepped beyond the clearing, following the pathless forest with a quiet certainty that had taken root during the night. The trees did not resist him. They parted slowly, as if nudged by something unseen, guiding him with soft light and long shadows toward what had long waited in silence. And then, without warning, he was there. The whispering oak stood in a hollow surrounded by stone and silence. It was unlike any other tree in the forest. Its bark was deep gray, etched with lines that seemed to shift when one did not look directly at them. Its branches reached out wide and high, touching no other tree. And beneath its canopy, the world grew still, not lifeless, but suspended, as if every moment stretched to eternity. Rowan approached with reverence. He did not speak. He did not reach for the tree. He simply sat beneath it, his back resting gently against its ancient trunk. The moment he closed his eyes, the whispering began. It was not a voice in the way humans understand voices. It was a feeling, a movement through the heart, as though memory had taken form and wrapped itself around thought. Rowan felt the presence of the forest, not just this forest, but all that had ever grown and fallen, all that had been rooted in silence and time. The oak remembered everything. It remembered the rise and fall of old kings, the laughter of forgotten children, the blood spilled and the tears shed beneath its shade. It remembered Rowan, not as a hero, not as a knight, but as someone who had listened, who had chosen stillness when others chose noise. That was what the tree recognized, not strength in battle, but peace in being. Rowan did not try to understand it all. He only let it move through him. And in that moment, beneath the towering branches of a tree that had outlived empires, he felt seen, not by eyes, but by the world itself. Did you feel the forest speak tonight? Then let your spirit rest a while longer, and like and subscribe for the next step in this timeless journey. Sir Rowan did not rush as he left the grove of the Whispering Oak. There was no sense of urgency, no final message, no grand farewell. The forest simply opened for him as it had done before, each tree parting like a silent witness satisfied with what had passed. The mist had lifted now, and sunlight spilled through the canopy in soft ribbons, painting the path home not in bright color, but in golden hush. He retraced his steps slowly, not because the way was long, but because something inside him had changed. He had no great truth to bring back, no prophecy, no reward. He carried no object, no sign, no message. What he had received was not something that could be spoken aloud, only lived. When he emerged from the woods near his cottage, the world had not noticed he was gone. The same sheep grazed lazily in the meadow, the same smoke drifted from village chimneys. Children laughed in the distance, and birds called out from hedges still heavy with dew. Everything had remained as it was, quiet, unbothered, soft. Rowan returned to his routines. He mended a gate the next morning. He helped a boy gather wildflowers for his grandmother. He shared cider with a farmer whose knees had begun to ache in the colder air. No one asked where he had been, and he did not offer the story. But those who spent time near him sensed something they could not explain. His silence now held more weight, as if it were a language of its own. His eyes lingered a little longer on the horizon. His footsteps, already careful, became even more patient. The forest had not given him power or fame, it had given him presence. A stillness that others felt without knowing why. Sometimes, at dusk, Rowan would walk to the edge of the forest and stand quietly beneath the birch where it had all begun. He would look toward the unseen grove, smile gently to himself, and then return home. The world had not changed, but he had. And that was more than enough. If this return to a quieter world brought you comfort, walk with us again, and like and subscribe for more tales where stillness carries meaning. Years passed, as they always do, with no grand announcement or visible change. The seasons flowed through Elmsworth like a gentle stream, each blending into the next without rush or resistance. The snow came and went, the wildflowers bloomed and faded, and the skies turned from gold to gray and back again. Sir Rowan aged quietly, without the weight of regret or the pull of unfinished duty. He simply lived, day by day, moment by moment, in harmony with a world that had always asked for little and given much in return. The villagers watched him grow older, but they never saw him grow weak. His back remained straight, his eyes clear, his hands still steady when holding the reins of his mare, Elwyn, now slower but still faithful. He became something more than a man to those who knew him, a kind of quiet symbol, like the standing stones on the hill or the ancient trees at the edge of the wood. Not holy, not untouchable, just enduring. Familiar. Grounded. No monument was ever built for Sir Rowan. No bard sang his name in halls of grandeur. But when he was no longer seen walking the lanes of Almora or tending his garden near the meadow, people noticed the silence he left behind. And though no one spoke of it in dramatic terms, they felt it. A stillness had passed from their midst, and the village breathed a little differently because of it. They say the forest knew when he was gone, that the wind shifted for a day, that the birds grew quiet, and the whispering oak stood in perfect stillness, as if bowing to the memory of someone it had once known deeply. His cottage remained untouched. Children would sometimes leave small offerings at his doorstep, a stone, a feather, a sprig of lavender, without knowing why. And the oak, it whispered still. Not loudly, never loudly, but to those who listened, it spoke of a night not remembered in books, but remembered by the earth. A man who lived without noise, and in doing so, left behind something more lasting than fame, peace. If you found rest in this gentle journey through time, let us walk together again. Like and subscribe for our next quiet tale from history. And may stillness be your guide until then.